What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another sort of daily video. So today we're meant to have another customer's car coming in sometime probably around midday, hopefully. That's going to be full rebuild head and cam package for an LS. So this morning I want to get on with some more stuff with the VL. I'm meant to be making Dan a 4-inch intake pipe. Dan's got an adapter, a 4-inch to 3-inch adapter for the turbo housing so that he can put a 4-inch intake pipe on it. Just so that he just wants the dose to be a deeper note, I think. I want to do that this morning. He also wants to replace all his intercooler hoses with T-bolt clamps instead of some of these worm clamps. He wants to replace all these sort of worm clamps with T-bolts, just so it's looks a bit tidier. It's going to work a bit better. He reckons he's had problems with this elbow popping off the turbo before. So we'll see what I've got as far as replacing all them for him. See what I've got in stock. And yeah, I'll make this intake. So I've got a bit of 4-inch stainless pipe off Adam, and my plan is just to make pretty much a pie cut intake the same way I sort of made mine, obviously with way less cuts because it's only going to be one, probably not even a 45-degree angle. So I went and stocked up on a heap of welding supplies the other day, so I've got heaps of goodies in the car here. But got here just a 4-inch pipe, so I should be good. So the biggest problem I'm going to face with making this intake is that our drop saw will not cut straight through a 4-inch pipe. So I'm going to have to pretty much set the drop saw, cut into it as much as I can, and then pretty much finish the cuts by hand with the grinder, which anyone that's done a lot of fab work, the most important thing to have neat welds is to have really good cuts so that they join really nicely. So you can join them with very little gap, so you can try and just sort of fuse them together. Which for an intake is fine just to fuse them because it's not under a lot of pressure. Obviously if it was intercooler piping and that sort of thing, you sort of want to purge it and actually get proper penetration. But for something that's just an intake off the front of the turbo, just fusing's fine. It's nice and neat, doesn't penetrate, so you don't get all the you don't have to worry about purging it because it doesn't get all the corally stuff inside. But yeah, it's just going to be a matter of see how good I can get my hand cuts with the grinder. So you can see here, sort of just stocked up on a heap of stuff. Got some new flappy wheels for the grinder. Needed some cutting discs. Got some flappy wheels for the die grinder as well to clean up the inside of the cuts. Then I got some gas lenses, some 1.6 tungstens, some new cups because ours are running a bit low, and a whole heap of filler. So just sort of stocking up on some stainless fab supplies just because I'm starting to do a fair bit more of it. So which is good. I'm glad. I really enjoy it and I'm getting better at it. So I'm pretty stoked to be doing it. But anyway, try and build Dan a nice little intake. Righto, so I measured up Dan's current intake. It is pretty much a 45 degree is what's on it, which is about what I'd like to keep, pretty much that same sort of shape, but in a 4-inch with a pie cut. So what I did with the 31 intake, I was doing 7.5 degree cuts, so your joins are 15 degree, but if I was going to do that for a 45 degree angle, it's only going to be 3 cuts, 3 welds, which I think will probably look a bit funny, having a pie cut with only like 3 welds on it. So what I'm going to try and do is do 5 degree cuts and just do 5 degree cuts. So it'll be 50 degrees. I reckon it'll look pretty cool. I reckon it'll look better with a few more welds than just with 3 welds and 3 sort of bigger pie cuts. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try set it to 5 degrees and do 5 degree cuts instead. So that's 10 degree joins. Do 5 of them. Oh, would you look at that? The drop saw actually does cut through 4-inch. That's really good news. That's awesome news. I thought it wouldn't. Maybe I'm just used to having a really worn down blade. So I did the first cut straight. Normally wouldn't, but because this bit of stainless is a little bit scuffed up, it's not perfect. It's not the nicest. I did the first cut straight so that I could orientate it the nicest way up, and then go from there. Plus it's an extra weld on it, which I think could look probably a little bit better. So that's what I decided to do there. So yeah, now I'll sort of adjust it, try and get 5 degrees, and make some pie cuts. Alrighty, so I've set the drop saw to about 5 degrees on the vise there, and what I do is I just get my piece and I pretty much pick a line, perfectly opposites on the piece and draw a line down each side. So what I do is just use this line as a guide for up, because obviously each time you do a cut you've got to turn the piece over to get the cut the other way for the pie cut. So not only does it just give you a guide when you're cutting to make sure it's the right way around, it also gives you a guide when you go to put it back together because you have lines to join up with, and it just allows you to make sure you get the the angles right on where they need to be, otherwise you get them skewed, which obviously with pie cuts can be a very big advantage if you need to. But for what I'm doing, it's just pretty much a straight angle. So all I do is cut this at a few angles, make sure the lines line back up, and tack it back together. So we do 5 cuts like this, see how we go. Righto, so we've got our cuts all cleaned up now. I did cut an extra one just in case if I wanted it, if I want to make it a bit of a tighter shape or not. So obviously I'm sure a lot of you have sort of cleaned on by now, but I think the secret to getting really neat fab work is obviously, much like paint is in the prep, make sure that all your cuts are cleaned up really well. Make sure you clean the piece up really well. Just make sure everything's nice and clean and sharp, and like your joins are all good. Go through the effort of making sure they're flat and they butt up all the way around and there's no gaps, because that way you can fuse them really well. So the other thing I do is with the pie cut, I always keep my 2 ends separate. So what I mean by ends is obviously you're gonna have to cut each end and it's gonna be flat. And so you're gonna have a flat side on one side plus your 5 degree on the other. Now the reason I do that is obviously when it comes to cylindrical shapes, if you're cutting at an angle, that angle is going to be not quite round. It's going to be a little bit out of round. So when it comes to actually joining back onto your straight bit, you're going to want to keep the straight cut so that it joins properly, because the angled cut won't quite be right. It's pretty hard to see, but it's just out. It's just out enough that it might look a bit funny. It makes it a bit harder to weld. So I keep them separate. So that's each end of the pie cut. So that it can go back to the straight bit nice and neat, and be nice and neat at the end of the day. So this is the bit that's going to come from the turbo. That's its length. And we'll start on the pie cuts. We'll start tacking it together. Try and keep the neatest bits up, and just keep fitting it to the car until we get our right angle and until I'm happy with it. And then measure how much more we want on the end and cut a bit more off the straight. And then the pod filter goes on the end of that. So the other thing I like to do is to tack it all together. And then once it's tacked, polish it right out to almost where you want it as a finish, fully polished, and then do your welds after it's polished, because personally I like to keep my welds raw just so that they can be seen, because I sort of am pretty proud of them. As a, just of doing fab work, I quite like it. So that's why I like to polish it beforehand, because if you polish afterwards, you're going to polish all of the heat marks, I suppose, out of the welds. It's not going to be I like the welds to be raw, so that's why I polish it before I go ahead and weld it. So now it's just a matter of starting to tack things together. I have to set up the TIG, and start fitting and tacking until we get it right. Righto, so we've got one dose pipe all tacked up. You can see what I was talking about the black lines when you line them up to tack it up. So it's going to sit someone like that, and should be pretty good. So now, like I said, I'm just going to polish this right out with metal polish. Because the piece wasn't the nicest piece to start with, it had lots of scuffs and stuff all over it, which is unfortunate, but didn't cost anything. So that's a big bonus. But anyway, so now I'm going to polish it right out, polish everything out, and then after I polish it, I'll weld it all up so they can leave the welds raw and it still looks nice and good. So hopefully she welds up pretty nice. So yeah, give it a big polish. Really can't complain with how that came up after a polish and clean up with some acetone. It's actually come out pretty good considering it was pretty much just a piece of scrap, so that'll be good. Rex has just locked tight the cam cover bolts at the moment, just because I think this thing must be just the cams. It just must vibrate, and it just keeps vibrating the cam cover bolts loose, and it's sort of leaking a bit of oil out of the cam covers down the block and stuff. So we've got to pull all the bolts out, lock tight, and put them back in so they don't keep sort of rattling loose a bit. And yeah, it's time for me to actually weld this up. So lesson learnt from when I did the coilovers on this, the last episode I did sort of working on this thing. I'm definitely going to put on some long sleeves. When I did them coilovers, I was like, oh, it won't be too bad. It's only like, you know, 2 coilovers, but it was like 130, 150 amps, and I had mad flash burn. So definitely putting on some long sleeves to weld this up. But yeah, I'll close up the doors, put a fresh tungsten in, and start welding this up. Alrighty, so I got here the finished product. Certainly not my best welding, even by my standards. It's pretty horrific. This is the top side, which I sort of left till last, which isn't too bad. Still not very great, but had to put some filler in this one here. And even though I kept cleaning it with acetone every time I was going to weld, it still brought up a lot of crap. So I don't know, maybe my method of you know, polishing after it's tacked, maybe that's not the best way to go about it, because I dare say a lot of that polishing compound gets caught in the cracks, and there's probably no way to really clean it out properly. So I might have to change my method of how I do that, because I think that's what a lot of this crap that it's brought up is in. Underneath is a lot worse. That's where I started. So you can see it's really bad. But anyway, it's all part of the learning process, I suppose. Again, I'm not exactly an expert fabricator. I'm still very much learning, so I'll leave it up to Dan whether he decides he wants to run this or not. But you know, the top side there, it's not too bad. It looks alright. It's just certainly not the best either. But anyway, it's just how it goes. So not much penetration, not much coralness and crap inside. So that's, yeah, sort of how it be. Got this Magna in. It's just getting an exhaust leak fixed up. It's not the car I was talking about that's meant to be coming today. It's just another job we're gonna have to do. But yeah, that's it in the sun. Not too bad. Came up alright, I suppose. Anyway, it's all learning. All learning curves. It's all learning, and yeah, it's all fun. I have a lot of fun learning that sort of stuff, so it's pretty good. Anyway, get on to fixing this little exhaust leak. Also, Rex Loctited all the cam cover bolts on the VL, so hopefully they stop coming loose and it stops those little oil leaks from little bits of oil from dripping down the block. So, you know, I'm gonna have something to eat because I'm freaking hungry. So the old exhaust here has definitely seen some better days. So, here you get this all fixed up. I didn't even realise they made like an all-wheel drive Magna. It's a bit different, a bit odd. So we're just going to cut out that whole S-bend and the flange that's in it, and we'll go down. We've got some new flanges down there, so we'll put a new flange on it for them. And just sort of replace that S-bend into that muffler, so that hopefully it doesn't leak.
I don't know, that's not real nice. Got a hole in it? That's a hole. It's not too bad, just a couple of holes there. I think I might just patch them.
Yeah, just bring them over.
Yeah.
Righto, so I've gone through and found all my T-bolts that I have left. I don't have enough 2.5 inch to swap out all of the 2.5 inch, but I can at least swap out on the elbow and do the one on the intercooler that's 2.5, and swap out all the 3s that are not already T-bolted. So swap all them out, that'll be a bit better for Dan, and just tidy up the engine bay a little bit more as well. Alrighty, so all swapped out for T-bolts. I put a 3 inch on the actual housing. I didn't bother replacing this with a T-bolt because this is going to be 4 inch anyway, to put his new intake on, so that's going to be 3 to 4 inch adapter. That'll be a 4 inch as well. I don't have any 4 inch T-bolts, so I can't really help him with those ones, but these have been swapped out, that's been swapped out, this one's been swapped out, the ones on the intercooler's been swapped out, and just a few around the place that you saw, so much better. Much more performance VL spec.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I'll make the noise thing.
Righto, looking pretty good in here now. Just set up this new overflow for Dan because the overflow that was in it was pretty crappy. I don't think it was going to be doing much. And considering the way that this radiator hose is and VLs in general, because of how low the radiator is, they have a habit of getting air locks, which is really bad for the head. So I thought it'd be pretty important to have an overflow bottle that's actually going to work so that when this does spew out coolant, it can definitely suck it all straight back in when it cools down. So I've set that up. That's just one I sort of had around. So I've set that up in this thing and routed it up. So starting to look pretty cool in this engine bay now. Very nice. So yeah, once that pie cut, that 4 inch intake's in there, probably start looking pretty cool in here. Liking it. Hopefully Dan's pretty stoked with it. Alrighty, so now we're going to go down to Caboolture to pick up this other customer car that was meant to be here today, just because that's as far as he can get out and still get home. So we'll get to train home from there, so we'll pick it up from there. So we'll be back tonight, I suppose. Be back into it. Go for a nice leisurely drive. Alright, long afternoon, but got it done. This is the car we're going to be doing some stuff to. Pretty tidy little VY 1 tonner. Yeah, LS1 6-speed, just getting a baby head and cam package and a full rebuild. So, complete rebuild, all new hardware, new oil pump, yeah, baby cam, springs, trunnion upgrade, a little bit of headboarding. Yeah, just a nice little LS package. So that's going to be happening over the next, couple of weeks probably as well. So, yeah, what a Friday. Been a long ass day. It's quite nice. It was originally like just a V6 auto, and it has been converted to LS1 6-speed. Like it's got the SS dash swapped in, the SS seats are swapped in. It's quite nice. I like it. As far as Commodores go, you know, it's pretty nice. I like it. Yeah, so the dude who owns this, I work with him, and he's pretty happy for me to make some content as we go as well. I don't know, I think the more people that I talk to about making the content, I think the more they sort of don't mind the idea of being able to watch their entire work be done and actually see exactly what's going on. So, I don't know, I sort of have always maintained that I didn't like doing content on customer stuff just because it slows down the process a little bit, but most of the stuff is just time-lapse rebuild anyway, and just the odd little information thrown in. So I think a lot of people are just, yeah, pretty stoked to be able to see exactly what they're paying for in a video and see exactly what's going on with their car through the video. So anyway, that's pretty cool that he's allowed me to do that. And so yeah, I'll be doing some content on that. LS bad boy. You can see there, new little less bend, new flanges, and just sealed up a few other little holes along the exhaust as well, so should hopefully sort out the massive exhaust leaks that this thing had. It'll be good. Man, I never thought that I'd say this, but this Magna is actually kind of cool.
I think it's called a Verada.
A Verada, is it?
I think so, yeah.
It's got a sunroof and everything. Sunroof, look how nice the interior is. V6 all-wheel drive. It's actually kind of not shit. Which is something, you know, I never really thought I'd say about like a Verada Magna. It says if it's Verada, it's just a four-wheel drive Magna. It definitely just looks like a Magna.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's kind of cool. Kind of cool. I like it a little bit. Shamelessly, I love it. Oh, that sounds way less like a race car now.
Hey, this is way less shit.
Hey.
Stop that. Hey! Hey!
Not up yet.
Hey! It'll be all four too.
Yeah, we're all yeah, we spin it.
Yay! Yay, yay!
Oh, just had a massive roast pork for dinner and it was so good. I'm so freaking full. So much food. Yeah. Get this thing out, get the ute in, and tonight probably just start unplugging the lube and getting things ready to get the motor out. And then probably in the morning we'll pull it out. We'll see how we go tonight. I don't think I'm going to want to be doing too much because I'm so full and so tired. So what we've decided to do, instead of just go ahead and start pulling everything out, disconnect the battery and that sort of stuff, first thing I'm going to do is plug in the Mongoose, or the scanner, the OBD scanner. And
Just HP tuners.
oh, just going to use HP tuners? Alright, we're just going to plug in HP tuners and just find out what codes it's throwing now, just so we know before it all comes out, any codes that it's potentially throwing, anything wrong at the moment before we go ahead and start on it. So just gives us a bit more of an idea of what's happening, which is, you know, good. It is throwing a check engine code, which I'm pretty sure is just overdue for a service, so only way to find out is to plug in HP tuners, so we'll do that first.
Diagnostics and info, so you go into here, you can read any DTCs. Okay, so engine codes, mass or volume airflow A circuit. So it's just coming up with a MAF
fault.
A MAF fault, which might be because
There's
the
not
MAF
one
is
there.
not there. Another one's engine oil pressure sensor switch low or high, which is a bit strange. So if you go to clear, that clears the current ones. Okay, engine oil pressure -110. Okay, so it's just got a problem with the
Air pressure sensor. The fucking oil
the oil pressure sensor. Either the sensors cactus or it's not plugged in
Wirings.
properly or something.
Yeah.
So other than that though, that's the only current trouble codes is the MAF and the engine oil pressure. The MAF one, when we reflash the tune-in, we can actually go in and disable that code.
Yep.
So we can get rid of that one, and we'll look into that oil pressure sensor. Either we'll have a look at the wiring. If the wiring looks alright, we might just talk to Tony and get a new sensor. Yeah. And other than that, it should have no codes.
As you can see, there are very obvious advantages of doing that before you start pulling everything apart, so you know what's going on. So glad we've done that. Anyway, now we can keep going on pulling it apart. Righto, so motor's out, as you can see. Got it there in the end, not without any casualties. Rex very much had his finger.
Yeah, fucking. It's pretty. I don't know if you can see it on camera. It's pretty bad.
Is the old trying to use the uni joint on the rattle gun.
Literally said before it did it too. I was
Yeah.
like, this is such a bad idea. You never ever do this.
It's pretty much exactly what Liam said before he lost his finger.
Wow. It's not as bad.
No, but anyway, all right. So motor's out, not a bad effort.
I'm not an idiot.
Motor's out. Took us 3 hours, both of us. Not a bad effort. The old LS1, like from factory, is pretty convoluted with how much stuff is actually attached to it. It's a lot more complicated than the old, RB, pulling out an RB. So anyway, much easier with 2 people than it is with 1. So pulled it off. Pulled the clutch off. The clutch actually, customer told us that the clutch went in was new when the motor went in, so we were hoping that was still going to be plenty of life left, but you know, there's still a little bit on there, but I don't know if it's really worth putting it back in. I think we might have to get a new clutch and flywheel setup basically for the efforts of rebuilding the motor. There's not much point in putting the clutch back in if it's going to have to come back out in, you know, probably less than 40,000 Ks. That clutch will probably get out of it. So yeah, probably going to be new clutch and flywheel, but I'll have to talk to the customer about it. Not our call to make, it's up to him. But anyway, that's going to pretty much be tonight's efforts. It's like 11 PM. We've had a massive day here, as you've probably seen from the vlog. Sorry if it's a bit long, but it has been a pretty big day for us. So I hope you've enjoyed. And yeah, thanks for watching as always. Hit subscribe, like, comment, and we'll continue this tomorrow when we get up. So look out for the next one. Get up in the morning and start pulling this motor down. That'll be tomorrow's job. Anyway, I'm tired. I'm really wrecked. I'm gonna go to bloody bed.